I'm not ready to say that 1-4 is a season ender because that's how good the offense looks. But my gosh, are they not doing themselves any favors? Welcome to the NFL on Fox podcast presented by Verizon, the NFL powered by Verizon 5G. I am your host, Dave Helman. We have got a loaded show for you today. Monday Night Football for starters. The Kansas City Chiefs roll into their bye week at 5-0 after a Monday night win against New Orleans. We'll get to that in a bit. Also had a chance to talk to our friend Carmen Vitali about some of the biggest surprises. We're roughly a third of the way through the season. What weren't we looking for? What do we think are some of the most surprising storylines in the NFL this season? And of course, we'll do our power rankings. But first, as we like to do on a Tuesday, had a chance to catch up with our friend Jay Glazer about some of the biggest storylines in the NFL coming out of week 5. The Davante Adams trade situation, where does that stand? Where do things stand with Romeo Doubs and the Packers after a weird weekend there? Plenty of storylines to talk about with Jay. As always, really enjoyed our conversation. Check it out. All right, Jay, let's dive into some of the biggest storylines coming out of the week 5 games. And let's start with the big one. I haven't had a chance to talk to you since the Davante Adams trade speculation really cranked into high gear last week. Raiders obviously lose to Denver on Sunday. Where do things stand with that coming out of that Vegas loss?
Well, it's not that it was coming out of Vegas loss. It actually started last week. Last Sunday, they thought everything was hunky-dory. Monday morning, Davante texts Antonio Pierce, says, hey, can I come up meet with you? And AP thought it was about the hamstring, from what I'm told. When he came up there, kind of shocked them all by saying, hey, I want out. I don't want my career ending like this. That's it. I can't do this anymore. And, there's a couple ways to handle it in Las Vegas. They decide, okay, we'll grant it. We want a 2+ for him. Another way to handle it would be to say, you know what? You can be as upset with it as you want. We're not going to do that right now. We're just going to sit, or, hey, we may not be able to get what we're looking for. And then we're going to have to figure out how to work it out here. Something along those lines. But look, I think when it happened, every team out there was like, oh my gosh, we're going to be in it for Davante. We've got to go do it. Cowboys and Ravens, most teams don't have the salary cap to put Davante in right now. So people are looking and saying, hey, the Saints are the most aggressive, and Saints are in it, but they'd either need, I think, the Ravens the Raiders to take some of the money, or they'd have to work out a long-term extension to drop what this year's cap hit would be. The team that makes the most sense is the Jets. They have the most cap space to get something like that and done right now. And, there's also a bunch of teams it seems like there's going to be an immediacy for this. And there could be. A team like the Jets could pull the trigger right now, right? But there's other teams who are saying, hey, you know what? We kind of want to look and see and wait and see and, want to see how this plays out over the next week or two. And, a 2+ for a guy, and I say this, it's a guy who you're going to have, for the most part, like a 1-year type of thing. That's a lot, because next 2 years of his contract, there are these balloon salaries where you can't do it. You're not going to be able to have them there.
Right.
So it's a team saying, okay, are we going to rent him for 2+, which is a lot, or do we get him to a long-term deal with a guy at this age, a receiver at this age? So there's a lot of other variables in play here. But I will say this, in camp, the Jets, the 49ers, a couple other teams, they reached out. Saints might have been one of them. They reached out about Davante. And they were told by Tom Telesco, I've got to give Antonio Pierce a chance with everybody here. Can't just do it, And I think if they got a quarterback in the draft, this wouldn't even be a conversation. Nope,
Sure.
Need you, that's it. Because they don't have that quarterback in the future, it becomes more of a conversation. And I talked to coaches there also. When I told them this offseason about, hey, there's these teams really looking, and they're saying, man, we wish that we could see where it makes sense for us to do this right now, because we don't have the quarterback in the future, and he's going to get frustrated at some point. And it's exactly what has happened there. But at the same point, you look at Tom Telesco and say, man, he just got there to the Raiders. He got fired in with the Chargers. How do you trade your best offensive player, your most popular offensive player, and can't right out of the gate. It's hard.
Let me ask you this, and Brandon Ayuk just proved that these things are fluid and you can't be 100% sure how things are going to develop over time. But I mean, if you had to guess, is there chance for some sort of reconciliation, or is it really just a matter of time until somebody is willing to pay whatever Vegas's price is?
It wouldn't make sense for there to be reconciliation right now. It just wouldn't make a lot of sense. And I think as he has, by the way, he does have a hamstring injury.
Mm.
Okay, but I think he's recovering. And also, like, they don't have him out there with the other players because they don't want kind of that energy around them. Is how it's been explained to me, but I'm not there. But I don't see a reconciliation at this point because I think the frustration is going to get more and more. But again, you didn't see it happen with Brandon Ayuk. In fact, the Ayuk in that story we had in week one, they did not have a deal on the table for him. When he went in, talked to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch for 2 hours, he was able to come back around and get them to offer what had already been offered in the past. And that offer was off the table. There was no offer on the table. So that looked like as sure an exit as you could possibly get, especially since they were on the phone with the Steelers finalizing a trade.
Yeah, as we saw, very well illustrated back in week one. We'll see where it
Very
goes
well
with
illustrated.
Davante.
That was awesome.
Seems like it's heading for some sort of trade. We'll see what happens with him. As
Hey,
long as we're
by the
talking,
way, you're talking about the illustration we had for that
yeah,
story in week one. Man, I sent it to all parties involved and everybody who was drawn about it. It was hilarious. But the only thing I'll say, Frog, who's the other guy with the 49ers, their executive there, you made him out to be a freaking supermodel. He said, my wife may leave me for that guy. And John Lynch, you made him look whiter and older as the cartoon went on. Like he aged as the cartoon went on. Trust me, we had a lot of fun with it. Trust me.
maybe, hey, the Ayuk,
Mike Tomlin, we had a blast with it.
I've got to imagine the Ayuk situation aged everybody involved at least a little
No,
bit. As
no.
long as long as we're talking about
Looked like
receivers,
Edelman in it.
as long as we are talking about receivers, there's a very call it interesting situation in Green Bay. Romeo Doubs misses practice a couple days last week, comes down over the weekend.
He missed, but they were unexcused misses.
Exactly. Yeah, excuse me. Not out with an injury, just
right.
did not show up to practice. Comes out over the weekend that he's suspended for the game against LA. Obviously, the Packers get the win on the road, but are you hearing anything about this situation and what comes next for Romeo Doubs with the Packers and how they get this ironed out?
Well, it was kind of interesting because Romeo Doubs has been just a model player for them since he's been there. So it kind of blindsided them. But it's not a situation where they're like, hey, let's just wash our hands. They're scheduled to meet with him Monday. And their hope is that, hey, we can move on from this. We can salvage this and whatever else underlying is going on. And there was a lot of things about, well, he was so upset with his role, his lack of targets, but he's had either the most amount of targets or, one of the couple top 2 targets over there or something along those lines. So they're like, well, it can't be that. So they're still trying to figure out, where did this come out of? What happened here? And I think they want to work with him to figure out what is going on exactly here. And they're hoping this just kind of a blip on the radar and we can get it back on track. They are definitely hoping to salvage him and be part of this team.
Yeah, I wouldn't guess
but it's up to him. It's up to him, really.
Something to monitor there. Like I said, Packers get the win, but yeah, I think you feel better about that receiver core as a whole with a guy as talented as Romeo Doubs. I'm interested.
By the way, those Packers, Matt LaFleur is doing such a good job because you got to think, right? They lost Jordan Love. Okay, he turns around Malik Willis, who looks fantastic. They have the Romeo Doubs situation. They've had a ton of injuries. It's just, man, he's done a really good job with a lot of distractions.
Packers up to 3-2 on the season. Speaking of winning games, development, whatever you want to talk about. Obviously, Jayden Daniels, one of the stories of the season by any objective measure, crushed the Browns on Sunday. Another phenomenal performance from him. What are you hearing coming out of Washington? Because look, I got Jayden's photo hanging on the wall right here. Like, I'm a proud LSU alum. I don't think even I saw him developing as quickly as he is under Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury. What are you hearing about how he's come along as quickly as he has?
The teams loved him coming out, and Washington had him as their number one guy on their board early on, like over Caleb Williams early on. And when you talked to Dan Quinn about him, he said every person we talked to, from his coaches at Arizona State, like Herm Edwards and Marvin Lewis, and the coaches down at LSU, they gave the magical thing you want to hear. This kid works so hard. He loves to work. He said across the board, it's all you heard. Well, I can work with that, right? You want to hear something like that. You want to just hear this guy's so talented. You want to hear this guy works his butt off. He's just going to continue to work. And that's what happened. And, Cliff Kingsbury, it's interesting. Like, they had Cliff in Chicago for an interview, decided not to go with him. The Raiders, he's supposed to go there. That was agreed he was going to go there. And he was asking for a 3-year deal because the Cardinals are paying 2 years of it. And the Raiders just wouldn't do it. They wouldn't give him the 3rd year. Like, you don't have to really pay. You pay a minimal for the first 2 years, and they wouldn't do it. And the moment you saw it was going to break down, Dan Quinn swooped right in. He's like, "Oh man, we're going to go grab him." And obviously that's working great. To develop under a guy like Cliff Kingsbury is fantastic. There's not a lot of teachers out there and developers out there. Clearly, Cliff Kingsbury is one of them. There's a lot of play callers, but not a lot of developers. So, he's doing a great job. And Dan Quinn, listen. Every place Dan Quinn has ever gone, defense has been phenomenal. Culture's been incredible. Legion of Boom, fantastic, right?
Absolutely.
Falcons defense, right? Like, man, who's on the Falcons defense that went to the Super Bowl? Give me a couple names. You don't have.
I mean, right? they had that 1 year of Vic Beasley.
It's like,
yeah, and great. Yeah, they had great. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't have those names. You have obviously Dallas Cowboys, whose defense clearly struggled without him, right? And now Washington, who doesn't have a lot of players, right? Same thing. Like, the culture Dan Quinn brings, you can't wait to get to work with Dan Quinn. Where a lot of guys, you come in there and like, oh man, I'm going to get reamed today. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that. Yeah, and I was in there with their meetings. I actually gave a mental health talk to the Commanders. The last team I talked to, which I get brought in now to talk to a lot of these teams about mental health, but not just have a psychologist talk. Have a guy like me who suffers from, or I shouldn't say suffers from, who overcomes clinical depression, anxiety, ADHD, bipolar, all of it, to have a real talk with these guys and teach these guys how to lean into each other. And, if I can't just real quick, like I've been talking to teams for 15 years. I got brought in to talk about violence and the fighter mentality. And because of all these teams, these players that I've coached in mixed martial arts, and these fighters that we coach, the fighter mentality, and tell these guys the mentality that we always coach. Some unbreakable, MMA thing that I do is, hey, if you're hurt or tired on that field or cage, you will never, ever, ever, ever know. You'll never know. You look at our guys like Lane Johnson, dude plays with 2 torn adductors, you'll never know. Guy like Andrew Whitworth, dude, you never know. Randy Couture, our partner in all this, broke his arm in half in the heavyweight championship of the world. You never knew, and said, oh man, I better finish this fight now, because if the docs or the referees see my arm's broken, they're going to stop it. You never knew. And you need that in football and fighting. I said, but guys, the same mentality gets people like me and a lot of us in here, especially as men, to never show it, never show that you're hurt, to get ourselves to really, really suffer and struggle in today's world, and to get people like me to have a really hard time, and we suffer in the silence. Well, you don't need to do it, because you've got 90 therapists in this room right here you can lean into. And think how close this will make you if you guys can lean into each other. And I always tell these guys, man, I know you're probably thinking, I can never do this. I can never lean into my, it's too embarrassing. The first time I ever came out with my mental health stuff, first time, I tell these guys, I put it on social media, which I was horrified to do, because social media is a cesspool. And, you just, the crap that they give you. And within 2 minutes, Mercedes Lewis, who I've trained in mixed martial arts, starting 15 or 16 years ago, reached out and said, Coach, I knew you were crazy and it's a badge of honor in football and fighting, but I didn't know you were in pain. I'm sorry. I got you. And that dude has called me 3 times a week, every single week since, to check up on me, make sure I'm good between the ears. I said, that sound like I'm Shane?
Wow.
He went from a friend to a brother. So think of what this will do for you guys. That's kind of like my message. And I kind of teach them also like, hey, I've now weaponized my issues. Where I used to be afraid of my depression, anxiety, ADHD, and bipolar. I figured out how they've helped me and become your superpower. And then if you do that, then you're not ashamed about it anymore. And man, just the culture, the team that they have inside there, it's for them to start where they are right now with Dan Quinn and Jayden Daniels and Cliff and them. They're just gonna get better and better and better because that's what Dan Quinn's teams do.
And I mean, so you talked to them over the offseason. Like, I mean,
talk to them the end of August. Yeah.
What vibe did you get from them at the time? Like, could you see some?
I got that the sky has parted because they went from Dan Snyder to this. Yeah. And I got that the sky has parted, and you
totally fair.
Like, oh my God, that's just, and also people in the organization who've been there for Dan Snyder now have this with Adam Peters and Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury, like, and a quarterback. Like, you got to be kidding me. These guys are like Julie Andrews from Sound of Music, run down that hill. The hills are alive,
It's definitely, safe to say.
Probably too old of a comparison for a lot of people watching, but.
I love that. It's a perfect segue, actually, because I wanted to bring up something that's near and dear to us here at Fox. Sean Payton breaking out a Ferris Bueller reference yesterday when talking about Bo Nix. He said Bo Nix has a little too much Ferris Bueller to him. I love it. It's a fantastic movie. I did wonder if maybe the reference is getting a little dated for Sean's audience in 2024, but obviously Sean and Bo had a little bit of a disagreement on the sideline there. I'm assuming nothing to worry about in the big picture, though.
You got to stand up to Sean. You have to. Okay, because Sean will, so funny. I've helped him get coaches hired over the years, and I would tell guys, listen, during the game, he's going to fire you 5 times during the game. He's going to fire you in the head. And you can't take it literal. And after the game, don't ask him if you're really fired or not. But he will. He'll fire you 5 times a game. He that's how he is. And literally after the game, and I've been there for after the game, it's like nothing happened. So he gets after you. I like to see that Bo is standing up for himself. Drew stood up for himself also. You got to kind of stand up for yourself with Sean, because Sean will wear you out if you don't.
Really fun times in Denver. They have won 3 games in a row. Very impressive stuff. All right, let's end it here. I have to imagine you had an idea Strahan was going to dunk you if nobody hit that buzzer, or did you think you were going to get out of there?
I'm surprised those losers couldn't actually hit the target. We're going to go, no, obviously not losers, but so funny too. When Jeter came up there, I'm like, man, I'm a New Yorker. I can't insult Jeter. He's like, that's the dude. I can't do it.
That's royalty right there.
One. I said, what are you captain of? Overthrowing? I came up with a good one. I did come up on the spot with that. I have more confidence in Strahan's dentist than you guys hitting this line on the spot.
Oh my gosh. That's good.
Came up with that one on the spot. It was fantastic. But I was I'm like, man, you guys, we got to start working out a little bit there. I mean, you guys like retired and you're done.
They're off their game, right? Yeah.
Gronk was the one who scared me, and he came the closest. And but I had to figure I was going in one way or the other. So of course it's going to be Strahan. By the way, funny story, nobody knows. And this goes back to why Strahan got me. Strahan, I don't know how long ago this was. This is like 95. Calls me up for 96. He's like, hey, I'm throwing out the first pitch to a Mets game. And no one knows this story. I'm throwing out the first pitch to the Mets game. I said, what, do you got in your mind? He said, what do you mean? I said, dude, you grew up in Germany. You don't have to throw baseball. What are you doing? Michael grew up in Germany on Army bases. That was in the military. And he said, I'll just lob it in. And I just made up, you can't lob it in. They put up their other people's times, and they'll put up like an old lady, this, and a kid, this. You can't lob it in. They don't want people lobbing it in. He goes, oh my gosh, what? So I'm just getting in his head. He goes, I'm coming to get you. I said, I want no part of this. I'm coming to get you. So he comes and picks me up. We're going to Shea Stadium, and I am just wearing him out, and I'm getting in his head. And then I say to him, hey, by the way, just so you know, when Mike Piazza does a little, signal, the ritual here in America is you shake him off. So Michael goes, really? I said, yeah, shake him off 3 times. He goes, come on. I said, straight. I'm not, this would happen. Everybody does it. If you've seen it, everybody does it. He goes, okay. So we go down there. First of all, that guy's not really fun at baseball. So we're standing down there in like the dugout, in like the tunnel of the dugout. And he's trying to throw me pitch. I don't got a glove on. So I'm not catching him. So like the first one goes like, boom, and it's like clanking all around. All the Mets are looking at like, who is this jagoff throwing a baseball at us? So finally, I'm just wearing him, and I'm in his head, and I'm like, oh man, and you better be on the mound and all this stuff. And he gets up there, and sure as hell, he gets up there, and Piazza does his little sign, and Strahan shakes him off. Piazza kind of looks at him like, what is this dude doing? By the way, no one knew who Michael Strahan was back then. Like the first 4 years of his career were a struggle. It was year 5.
Before the all
right?
pros and all the sacks. Yeah.
So no one really knows who he is. So Piazza does it again, shakes him off again. And I'm like, this moron's really doing it. And then he does it again. He shakes him off again. And Piazza kind of slumps and looks over to the dugout to like, who is this idiot shaking me off? So finally, I'll give Stray credit. Dude threw a perfect strike. I don't know how, but it was perfect. And he runs over and he says, yeah, man. And he's so excited. He said, and you see me shake off Piazza? I said, dude, what are you doing? No one shakes off Piazza. He's like, I'm going to kill you, and starts running after me down over there. I think that's the first time that people looked at it like, these two are idiots, like Step Brothers weren't out yet. We're like the guys from Slapshot. So he's going to get
what a pull right there.
Yes, here we go.
If it didn't already make sense why he might run up to dunk you into the dunk tank, I get it now. Shaking off Mike Piazza, that's an all-timer, and that's a perfect ender.
That's nothing. The jokes I played on Strahan over the years and Howie, and the fact that they haven't been able to get me back yet, you can't glaze the glaze. Don't happen. Doesn't happen.
I look forward to this every week, man. We always appreciate the time, Jay. Looking forward to see what they have in store for you next week, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, Gronk got it worse than me, so I'm still good. And by the way, my wife made me take him to dinner the other night as like an apology. So I'm not apologizing, Rosie. Absolutely not. No chance am I apologizing.
Do what we do for the people we care about. Jay Glazer, I appreciate it, brother. Thanks, man.
Thanks as always to Jay. Let's talk about that Monday Night Football game. Chiefs finish week 5 at home against the Saints. Big night in Kansas City. Chiefs wear down the New Orleans Saints 26-13. Meanwhile, up in the Bronx, the Royals get a big win against the Yankees. Sounds like a fun time to be hanging out in KC as a sports fan. This Chiefs game deceptively doesn't look like a blowout when you see the graphic right there. 26-13. It's not terribly lopsided, but man, you dig deeper into this game, it felt more and more one-sided as the game goes along. I'm about to date myself here, but are you old enough that you had like a manual pencil sharpener when you were in school? You know, the one where you walk across the room and you have to like grind your pencil down by cranking the little sharpener? Please, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm sorry, I'm getting old. But that's what this game felt like. Chiefs just wore the Saints down to a nub. They only win the game 26-13, but they outgained New Orleans 460-220. Some of that Saints yardage was garbage time stuff after the game was well decided and Derek Carr had left with an oblique injury. That happened midway through the fourth. Keep an eye on what's going on with Derek Carr. Not sure about that, but really a couple weird bounces of the ball made this look a lot closer than it needed to be. The strangest, most fun one of the night, a slant pass to Juju Smith-Schuster bounces out of his hands into the arms of Saints defensive tackle Colin Saunders, who takes the bobble out of his own end zone for 36 yards. Saints go on to score a touchdown. And at the start of the fourth quarter, you're like, ooh, Chiefs left the door open. It's 16-13. We got a ball game. Glad we're staying up late for a little Monday Night Madness. And not at all what happened. Chiefs put the pedal down immediately. They go right back down the field. Juju makes up for the bobble with a 50-yard catch and run to get them down in the red zone. Xavier Worthy caps it off with a touchdown. Chiefs get a field goal a few minutes later, and it's all she wrote. A game that had the potential for drama ends up looking very, very comfortable. Arguably the Chiefs' most comfortable win of the season so far. And it looked like a very good idea of what we're going to see from this team while they figure out what to do without any healthy wide receivers. Remember, Rashee Rice, gone. Hollywood Brown, gone. Isaiah Pacheco, gone. And they just kind of keep rolling along. Juju Smith-Schuster, Travis Kelce are the volume guys. Juju, big night for him. He goes 7 for 130. His first 100-yard game since the last time he was on the Chiefs back in 2022. And then you dial up a few shot plays for Xavier Worthy. They tried him deep a couple of times. He drew a big defensive pass interference on one possession, and they call his number on a Travis Kelce wildcat run in the red zone. And Patrick Mahomes is just good enough to make all of this work. It's maddening how the Chiefs managed to do this. Kareem Hunt plays in this game and goes over 100 yards for the first time since the last time he was a Chief, all the way back in 2018. Just plugs right in. They sign him after the Pacheco injury, 100 yards and a touchdown in his first extended action for the Chiefs. That's just how easy this team can make it look. And Patrick Mahomes wasn't even doing all of the downfield rocket launcher stuff other than, a couple of called shots to Worthy. Amazing stat I saw right before we started recording. 300 of his 331 yards came on passes that traveled 15 yards or less downfield. Just a lot of underneath stuff, a lot of stuff at the line of scrimmage. Don't make life too difficult when you're this depleted at receiver. And when you have Patrick Mahomes, that's more than good enough. 5-0, incredible. I'm grateful that they've started off this hot because I just don't have the patience for the what's wrong with the Chiefs storylines anymore. They're going to slap it together and win games. Doesn't matter who gets hurt. Doesn't matter who they have to plug in. I'm glad we don't have to waste our time with that narrative. They get a well-deserved week off. Patrick Mahomes said he's going to go watch the Royals at Kaufman during the downtime. Good for them. Chiefs are just fine. Even when there's injuries and all sorts of things are going wrong, they are A-okay. As for the Saints, life comes at you fast, man. 2 big blowout wins to open the season 2-0. They're plus 44 in point differential on the year. And they just lost their 3rd consecutive game. Chiefs outclassed them. Like I said, they doubled them up on yardage. It was only by fluke plays that they were in this game. If I'm a Saints fan, it's got to sting knowing that, for instance, the Eagles game slipped away from you at the end, or that the Falcons game slipped away from you with Atlanta not scoring an offensive touchdown. The Saints should be 3-2. One of those games should have gone their way. This was not one of them, though. Outclassed by the defending champs, and the Saints fall to 2-3. Big division matchup coming up for them as they try to keep this thing going completely off the rails. But that's probably going to depend on Derek Carr. Something we'll have an eye on for our preview episode, but a very, very impressive win for the Chiefs to just smother the Saints en route to a 5-0 record. All right, with all the week 5 results in the books, we want to take this opportunity on the show to pull back, take a look at the big picture, look at some things in the league landscape now that we are a third of the way through the season. I know it's hard to believe. Here we are, approaching mid-October already. We're going to take a look at some of the surprising storylines, things we definitely didn't see coming. And it feels like enough time has passed at this point. We're not talking about flashes in the pan. I think some of these storylines, some of these things we're going to get into seem like they have true staying power. We're going to talk about the stuff we didn't see coming, what we think is more surprising. To do that, I'm joined, as I often am on Tuesdays, by Fox Sports reporter Carmen Vitali. Carm, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Are you ready to rehash, not necessarily bad takes, but things that we definitely didn't have on our bingo cards 5 or 6 weeks ago?
Yeah. I think this is a good time to do it too, because I don't know how it happens, but we always forget in the first 4 weeks of the season that things are just always topsy-turvy because teams don't have film on other teams. They're drastically different than they were last year. There's a lot of changeover, a lot of new coaches, all that other stuff. So everything looks crazy in the first couple of weeks of every single season, and somehow we forget about that. But now that we're going into week 6 already, which you're right is insane, yeah, there's some stuff that's staying around that we're like, oh, that's not just middle or beginning of the season craziness. That's actual craziness this year.
Exactly. These are real deal trends. These are guys, teams that are, I think, going to stick around for the long haul. And let's start there. Let's start with two quarterbacks that we talked a lot about. I don't know how many people saw them as being two of the best quarterbacks in the entire NFL. And that's where we're at with Washington rookie Jayden Daniels and first-year Minnesota starter Sam Darnold. Easily two of the biggest stories of the early going of the season. Both fairly surprising, Carmen, but who do you think has been more surprising, more maybe out of nowhere is not the right way to describe it, but just the things we weren't quite ready for of how these two are playing? Which one do you think is more surprising?
I have to go Sam Darnold for the sheer fact of,
Okay.
Listen, go back to 2023. Think about 2023 you. What sounds more shocking at this point? That LSU's standout quarterback, Jayden Daniels, goes second overall and is then one of the top 10 best quarterbacks in his rookie season, or that Sam Darnold is an MVP candidate and on an undefeated team and also one of the best quarterbacks in the league. It's happening sooner than we thought with Jayden, and I don't want to take anything away from all the wonderful things that he's been able to do in Washington with a less than stellar supporting cast. But we didn't think this was ever going to happen for Sam Darnold at this point. He had been left for dead by multiple organizations. He is on his fifth head coach, his sixth offensive coordinator. By the way, none of those other coordinators are still in the league at the coordinator level. He was failed so many times, but we also had the conversation of, well, did those coordinators fail because of Sam Darnold? And now he goes to Minnesota. He is around a lot of talent. I'll give you that. But he is still outperforming expectations. And where he was supposed to just be a placeholder for the Minnesota Vikings, he now has this team thriving and in real contention for the NFC if this keeps up.
Will you be shocked to hear that I'm gonna be a little contrary with you? I'm gonna
not
push
at all. I'm ready for it. I've got stats. I'm ready to go, Helman.
Well, here's the funny thing. In 2023, I was champing at the bit to get a look at Sam Darnold as the 49ers starting quarterback.
I think both of us were. I've also just thought that Sam Darnold has been failed and thought that maybe in San Francisco this was going to be something.
Brock Purdy, it's easy to forget. Brock Purdy was coming off a UCL injury. We didn't know if he was going to be ready for the start of the season. And as a longtime member of the Darnold Hive, I believed that he was capable of finding success. And then you go back to the summer, Carm, and I swear I'm not trying to take any of the credit away from Sam Darnold. I certainly didn't see this coming, but we did talk about how the foundation for success was there between Kevin O'Connell as the play caller. The offensive tackles are a great starting point in Minnesota. You feel great about those guys. Aaron Jones is on board. The best receiver in football plays for the Vikings. I know that you and I and a lot of other people looked at this situation and said, maybe Sam Darnold's in for a bit of a renaissance. Like, that didn't come completely out of nowhere. And I hear your point. Jayden Daniels won a Heisman. He was the number 2 overall pick in the draft. We had a lot of expectation. But my answer for this is it's definitely Jayden, because even if I thought he was going to be successful, I never saw them reaching these heights so quickly. For all of the reasons I just said good about Sam Darnold, think back to the summer. What was Jayden Daniels working with? You feel bad about the offensive line in Washington. You don't feel great about the supporting cast. Like, sure, Terry McLaurin's a great player. What else are we talking about? We're talking about Zach Ertz nearing the end of his career, Austin Eckler coming off of an injury-plagued season. The Commanders traded away their number 2 receiver, Jahan Dotson, like on the eve of the season. And the play caller, everybody's singing Cliff Kingsbury's praises right now, and rightfully so. But we had a lot of questions about the inconsistencies with Cliff, the way that his offenses in Arizona often stalled out. And now look at these guys, man. I looked it up. Jayden Daniels' stats, they compare favorably to any rookie quarterback you want to talk about in recent memory. Love this note from our guy, Jordan Schultz. Since 1970, no NFL team with a rookie quarterback has scored more than 150 points in their first 5 games until Jayden Daniels just did it. Like, they're not just winning. They look absolutely dominant. Their running game is one of the best in the NFL, in addition to Jayden's efficiency and accuracy. I thought the guy was good. I did not see them being this good. One of the most efficient, effective offenses in the NFL. I don't know how many people did. Even people that were high on Jayden Daniels, I don't know how many of them saw the first 5 weeks of the season looking like this.
No, and again, I don't want to take anything away from Jayden, because what he's done with what we thought was going to be a lot less. Now, I think we're conflating a little bit how much better Washington is overall as an offense. Under Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive line is faring so much better than we thought. These weapons, Terry McLaurin is getting involved. And again, you talk about the rushing, the ground game. That's something that I don't think a lot of us saw coming. And I think what Cliff Kingsbury did so beautifully in the beginning of the season, especially with Jayden Daniels, was he didn't ask him to do too much. Jayden Daniels going into week 5 was 40th in average depth of target. He had an average depth of target of 6.9 yards, which is nice, but it's not pushing the ball down the field. It's not asking your quarterback to do a whole lot for you. And that is exactly what you want to do with a young quarterback. You want to get his confidence up. You want to have him hang his hat on those completion rates and those easy throws, and not having to get through all these crazy progressions, which isn't stressing the offensive line, having that run game to lean on. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Washington still, is on par with what the Minnesota Vikings have, because you look at Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. But the thing is about Sam Darnold is he's taking advantage of all the attention that goes to Justin Jefferson, and he's spreading the wealth. He has the third ranked air yards per completion average at 7.4 yards. So his balls are traveling all the way down the field. I'm pausing at everything I'm saying, guys. I know it's football.
Please be very careful. Yeah.
I'm treading softly, but football is just, it's a minefield out here, language wise. The point of the matter, or the point that I'm trying to make, is that Sam Darnold is pushing this ball down the field, and he is distributing the wealth to guys like Jalen Naylor, Johnny Munt. Aaron Jones lined up wide on a 3rd down in this game against the Jets and took off on a 20-yard route, and Sam Darnold hit him for it. Like, this is something that he's become so comfortable so quickly in Kevin O'Connell's system. And he's top 10 in success rate, top 10 in quarterback rating. And even when you talk about all that talent that he has, he is still outperforming that expectation, because he has the 11th ranked completion rate over expectation, meaning that is a stat that takes into account who you are throwing to, what is around you, what is being asked of you. And Sam Darnold is still outperforming that at a rate that is one of the highest in the league. So I have to say that no one saw this version of Sam Darnold. I think when you talk about the Minnesota Vikings prior to this season, you looked at the situation, you're like, okay, this is a really good situation. All Sam Darnold needs to do is just be a game manager. He just needs to kind of be the guy that distributes the ball, like you said, or like I was talking about, but just, he doesn't need to do too much. This guy is second in the league in touchdowns, right? In offensive touchdowns right now. He's not just keeping the team afloat with the talent that he has. He is, again, thriving, and this entire team is thriving as a result. And maybe there's a little bit to be said about the fact that we might have been taken off guard, because I know you and I were both like, Sam needs a chance, Sam needs a chance, Sam needs a chance. But no one saw this much coming from Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings, but Sam Darnold specifically. I'm not conflating what we thought about the Minnesota Vikings with what we think about Sam Darnold. I do think it's interesting, and this is the last thing I'll say, maybe it is a little bit less of a surprise, or we should have not been as surprised, because where was Sam Darnold before this? In San Francisco. Who was the head coach in San Francisco? It's Kyle Shanahan. Do you know who Kyle Shanahan's really good friend is? Kevin O'Connell. And so when the Minnesota Vikings were looking for a bridge quarterback, because they knew that they were going to draft another guy and try and develop him, I have to think that Kyle Shanahan went to Kevin O'Connell and said, hey, listen, Brock Purdy is healthy. He's a great quarterback for us. We don't need Sam Darnold. You might. And look at what happened. So
I think
Coaches don't seem to be surprised.
I think you just made my case for me.
No, I didn't, because at the same time, Jayden Daniels is a Heisman winner. He did all the same things he's doing right now for LSU last year, and he came into the league. This is exactly what you were expecting of him. Maybe not this soon, but you were expecting this of Jayden Daniels.
It is the soon part. It is the soon part that makes this for me.
Again, but we didn't think this was going to happen at all for Sam Darnold, not to this degree. That's the point.
Look, we're splitting hairs here. I don't think
they're both great quarterbacks.
I don't think anybody saw either of these teams leading their divisions after 5 weeks. I can't wait to check in on this. I think they're both here to stay, but surely some downs are coming after the highs of September. We'll see where they go. Let's keep this pushing, because I want to talk about two surprising teams in a bad way. Two teams that we thought very highly of. Obviously, the San Francisco 49ers, it goes without saying, one of the preseason Super Bowl favorites. They've been banged up. They lose to Arizona on Sunday. They're sitting at 2-3, tied for second or third, depending on how you want to look at it, in the NFC West. Meanwhile, Cincinnati Bengals, team that I saw as my AFC favorite. I saw Joe Burrow as my MVP candidate. On and on and on and on. They sit at 1-4 after a heartbreaking loss to the Baltimore Ravens. What do you find more surprising? That the Niners have been struggling fairly consistently, I'll say, or that the Bengals season already in mid-October is on life support?
I'd mentioned how Sam Darnold is second in passing touchdowns. You want to know who leads the league in passing touchdowns?
That would be Joe Burrow.
It's Joe G.D. Burrow.
That's right.
And he is first in passer rating among qualified quarterbacks. The offense in general in Cincinnati is second in EPA per play. The entire team is just, I cannot believe that they're at the record they are, and that this defense is failing them so incredibly horribly. They are letting up the 5th highest EPA per play. They are tied with the Panthers, the Carolina Panthers, for the fewest sacks in the league. The Cincinnati Bengals have generated the 3rd fewest pressures, and they are worst in the league at beating their blocks. This is a PFF metric that aims to kind of quantify if defenders beat their man and whether or not they record a pressure or any sort of stat off of it. Do they just outright beat their guy? The Cincinnati Bengals are the worst at doing that. They are middling or worst when it comes to run defense. They are ranked 24th in passing yards per play allowed. They have the 9th worst EPA per play versus the pass. They are the 4th worst overall EPA allowed. And they have not improved at all from last year, which is the really disheartening part. They were letting up 22.6 points per game in 2023. In 2024, so far, they're letting up 29 points per game. This is not sustainable, and it's not fair to a Bengals offense that is just by far and away running on all cylinders. You have Joe Burrow playing absolutely out of his mind. He is connecting with Jamar Chase. Now that T. Higgins is back up to speed, he's there and he's a threat. You're distributing the ball. It could be a little bit more balanced when it comes to the run game. I get that, but it's so unfair to Joe Burrow to lose in the fashion that they're losing. And it's honestly, it's shocking because, like you said, the Cincinnati Bengals were one of my favorites in the AFC. I wonder even if the AFC in general is just not as competitive as we thought it was going to be.
There are 6 1-4 teams in the NFL as we sit here right now. The point differential for all of the others is -40 or worse. The 1-4 Cincinnati Bengals have a point differential of just -5. I'm gonna go as far as to say my answer is also Cincinnati. San Francisco, I hate to sound smug. I almost saw this coming. I'm not going to go as far as to say I saw them sitting below 500, but this is a veteran team. We knew they were dealing with injuries and holdouts in training camp. It looks like it through the first 5 weeks of the season, but Brock Purdy's playing great. I trust Kyle Shanahan implicitly. Like, I'm not shocked that this is where they are, and I'm not worried about them. I am furious with the Cincinnati Bengals. I am so mad. They are so good on offense. Joe Burrow is playing some of the best ball of his life. He's completing 72% of his passes. You already said it. Leads the league in touchdown passes. I mean, Sunday against Baltimore was a supernova. And you find a way to lose that game despite getting gifted a fumble in overtime. Go all the way back to week 1. I know that your receivers were dealing with injuries, but you find a way to beat a lowly Patriots team, and we're not having this conversation. We're talking about it the same way we are as the Patriots, where you're like, oh, they're 2-3. It hasn't been pretty, but they're hanging out right there near 500. They'll be okay. I'm not ready to say that 1-4 is a season ender because that's how good the offense looks. But my gosh, are they not doing themselves any favors? And when they go up against, and maybe you're right, Carm, maybe the AFC is not as good as we thought, but when you go up against some of these heavyweights, their defense doesn't look capable of holding up. And I'm mad that it's going to sink them. I knew the offense was going to have to carry the load, but this clearly it's not sustainable, as evidenced by the fact that they've only managed to win one game.
Yeah, I'm with you with San Francisco. The vibes are just kind of bad at the end of training camp to start the season with the Brandon Ayuk drama and Trent Williams holding out and all this other stuff where you're like, all right, it makes sense. And especially because they've sustained other injuries. You don't know when Christian McCaffrey is going to end up back on this football field. He's going off to Germany to get stem cell therapy. Like those are all not really good things, but if any of those guys return and when they return, I expect that, the San Francisco offense in particular and the defense can rally around each other and still be okay down the stretch. I am really, really concerned about the Cincinnati Bengals, given the fact, you can't ask this offense to do any more than it's already doing. And when you're letting up close to 30 points a game as an average, it's not, that doesn't scream contender to me. That doesn't even scream playoffs, especially when you're in one of the toughest divisions in football.
Cincinnati has a somewhat manageable stretch coming up of Giants, Browns, Eagles, Raiders here over the next 4 weeks. Maybe it doesn't have to be all 4, but you got to stack 3 wins in the next 4 before the next time you play the Ravens, I think, or this really could be a lost season. It already feels like it might be, but I'll give you a few more games, Bengals. Let's finish this up with a fun one. We're going to look at 2 entire divisions that I think have completely subverted my expectations. That would be 2 of the ones in the AFC, the AFC East and AFC West. AFC East has long been talked about as a juggernaut. The Bills have owned it for years. The Dolphins, obviously Aaron Rodgers with the Jets, incredibly disappointing through 5 weeks. Just one team over 500. That would be the Bills, who have lost 2 weeks in a row after starting 3-0. Then over in the AFC West, a division I'll just speak for myself, I viewed as a bit of a dumpster fire, other than the Kansas City Chiefs, playing some surprisingly competent football, Carmen. Obviously, you have Kansas City, but Denver's on a 3-game winning streak. The Chargers were on a bye, but they have looked competent. Even the Raiders beat Baltimore this year. That's maybe the nicest thing I can come up with for Vegas, but still one of the more impressive wins of the season to win in Baltimore. What do you think is more surprising? The AFC East's incompetence or the AFC West's just regular old competence?
Yeah, I still think it's the AFC East and just kind of imploding catastrophically. You were so high on the New York Jets, and I think you and I kind of disagreed on this.
I'm not jumping off that bandwagon for the record.
Okay, all right.
Not yet
That's
anyway.
that's your prerogative. I'm not saying you should jump off entirely or whatever, but I just remember having this conversation with you about how we need to, like, I didn't see it going so well in New York. Again, just really quantitative analysis here. The vibes were bad, but they are bad. And they're not, it's one thing if the vibes are bad off the field, but on the field, things are working. Things are not working for the New York Jets. And we keep trying to see when they're going to start. And going into week 6, the fact that we still feel so badly about them, I think speaks volumes, because Aaron Rodgers was supposed to be the savior of this franchise, a la Tom Brady in 2020 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That has not happened. And through almost 6 weeks of the season now, Aaron Rodgers has been a detriment to the New York Jets, which is absolutely crazy to say. He has the 5th worst completion rate over expectation in the league. The only players worse than that are Bryce Young, Snoop Huntley, Jordan Love, actually, funny enough, dealing with injury, and Anthony Richardson. Aaron Rodgers has the 6th worst overall EPA at negative 29.7. So EPA is expected points added. Aaron Rodgers has subtracted a total of 29.7 points from his team, which is tied with Gardner Minshew, who just got benched. And he's on the season, Aaron Rodgers, 111 of 182 for 1,093 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. He had a pick 6, which is not something that Aaron Rodgers does. I think it was the 5th of his entire career in London, which things are topsy-turvy there, and that's not exactly a get-right place, although Minnesota's never lost there. Things are so bad for the New York Jets, who were supposed to be the ones to contend with the Bills, who you and I were both super confident in.
Yep.
I think we knew the Bills could do it. We knew Josh Allen could do it. You know, a lot of people looked at the losses on that team and were like, how could they possibly sustain the top spot in this division? Well, pretty easily, when the rest of these teams are absolutely terrible. The Dolphins were supposed to be AFC contenders. The cracks have started to show in their team building process, their depth, their complete lack of planning. Once Tua went down, you really saw all of the glaring holes on the offensive line that they did not address this offseason. They did not have a really competent backup plan if Tua was to go down. It looks all bad in Miami. They can't get the ground game going really either, at least not to the degree they had it last year. Tyreek Hill is like popping off on Twitter, just seems completely checked out. And then the Patriots are exactly what we thought they were going to be, but it's not good. And I do think it's going to be you're going to see improvement from them, but nobody was really expecting anything from them there. It's just this entire division is just not what I thought we thought it was going to be. We thought it was going to be a race between the Jets and the Bills, and so far, not the case.
I'm going to be a contrarian again. Are you ready?
Sure.
The AFC East does not look as impressive as I thought it would, but like in general, it looks like what I expected it to look like, in the sense of the Bills are still on top. I think we would all agree the Bills are still the best team in this division. Even when they've struggled, they look like the best of the 4. The New York Jets look like a team that's trying to acclimate a 40-year-old quarterback with a bad Achilles into their offense. The Jets have looked worse than I would have given them credit for. I will admit that. But it's a long season. I can see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl ring in your bookshelf back there. And I'll just remind you that it wasn't all hunky-dory for the 2020 Buccaneers either. They were struggling mightily at times during that season before they turned it on.
7-5 going into their bye.
As long as the Jets are hanging around, I'm okay with that. And then it's hard to judge the Dolphins because of the Tua injury, but even before then, I thought that they had lost enough that I was worried about them. So in the grand scheme of things, it looks fairly like what I expected. Now, the reason I disagree with you, the AFC West looks so much better than I would have given it credit for. Like when the season started, of course you love the Chiefs. We don't even really need to talk about the Chiefs, but I saw Denver, Vegas, and the Chargers all as like 3 of the 6 or 7 worst teams in the league. And that just hasn't been the case. For like, mainly, I think we need to talk about the Denver Broncos defense. We talked on the show,
Yep.
on the Sunday recap show, about how good Patrick Surtain was. In general, just shout out to the Denver Broncos defense. 5th in defensive DVOA, 2nd best scoring defense in the league, have not allowed more than 20 points since their week 1 loss. And look, I'm not going to sit here and convince you Bo Nix is the man. I was looking for ammo to fuel my argument. It hasn't been all that great. Like, he's 2nd to last in success rate. He's 4th to last in EPA per dropback. He's certainly not lighting the league on fire. He also hasn't committed a turnover since week 2. Like, he's just doing what is asked of him, doing what is needed of him. Had a phenomenal day against the Raiders. And as long as he's doing that, Denver's defense is good enough to win them some games. Like, this is a team right now that's in the wild card field. And as long as Bo Nix doesn't lose his mind on too regular of a basis, I think they'll stay there. So I think
Yeah.
that's something worth considering that I never took seriously in the preseason. And you can say the same thing about the Chargers. Again, another top 5 defensive unit right now, top 3 in defensive DVOA, tied for second in scoring defense. It's a small sample size because they didn't play in week 5, but I don't think I gave enough credence to Jim Harbaugh just raising the floor of what the Chargers are capable of. Like, maybe they're not going to be at any point a great, even really good team this year, but they're also just not going to be horrendous. And given some seasons we've seen from the LA Chargers, that matters. Like, this is just a sound team that's probably not going to be losing a lot of games 63-20, which is at least a step in the right direction. So I just don't think I took the AFC West as seriously as I should have a month ago. And I want to state that for the record.
Yeah, I think that you and I we're saying the same things about each division. So like I was a little bit higher, I think, on the AFC West in general, and just the fact that Jim Harbaugh, this kind of scheme that he runs isn't something that you really often see in the NFL, which is like that run first, ground and pound, grind it out football. And that's not something that defenses are really built to contain anymore. They're lighter and they're faster. They're more sophisticated to deal with the pass. And so you just see, I saw that not maybe, like I said, like you said, rather going well, where the Chargers are this juggernaut and they're going to end up for sure in the postseason. But I just didn't think it was going to be a disaster. I do want to give some more props to Denver's defense, especially. We talk a lot about Pat Surtain, but this defensive front, man, they are 3rd in total pressures this season so far. They have some of the highest sack rates of any team.
Third in sacks this year.
3rd in sacks this year. They're tied with the Bucs as far as quarterback hurries goes, or at least they were going into this game. And they're blitzing at like the 2nd or 3rd highest rate in the league. So they're super aggressive. And this defensive front, just in general, you don't see a lot of stars. And I think that that's why, it's been kind of counted out a lot of the time. But they are being extraordinarily effective and they are being extraordinarily aggressive. And it is leading to a lot of those errant throws that guys like Pat Surtain are taking advantage of. It's just a whole cohesive unit on the defensive side of the ball in Denver that's what's leading the team at this point. That's what's kind of keeping them afloat. You mentioned that Bo Nix is not doing too much. He's not doing too little. He's just, he's the Goldilocks.
He's not hurting them though. These last 3 weeks,
exactly.
He's
taking care of the football. He's taking care of the football. He's not turning it over. He's not stressing the defense. And this team is leading with defense as a result, which is not something that I saw coming either necessarily, but I just didn't think that the entire division was going to be a total dumpster fire outside of the Chiefs. The Chiefs haven't looked as good as we had probably thought they were going to.
Yeah, ironically,
kind of addressed some of their issues.
Ironically, the mighty Chiefs are, they're fine, but maybe not as amazing through the first 5 weeks as everybody thought.
I'm not suggesting that we're worried about them at all. I'm not going to pretend like last year didn't happen with the Kansas City Chiefs.
If the season ended right now, I know it doesn't, but it's still fun to talk about. There's 3 AFC West teams in the playoff field right now. Broncos and Chargers as wild cards, Chiefs obviously as the leader. I would never have guessed that that would be true even for 1 week of this season. Some really impressive stuff happening on the defensive side of the ball, particularly. We'll see where it goes. Maybe we'll check in the second third of the season. Just wanted to take stock of, we always say it, you never know for sure what's going to happen. Once again, the NFL proving us correctly. Carm, we'll talk to you soon. As always, I appreciate it.
Sounds good. Thanks.
That just about does it for the show. But first, of course, one last bit of business to get to before we turn the page to week 6. We got to sort out the power rankings, figure out the league hierarchy, decide who is good and should feel joy and who is not so good and should maybe feel shame about their most recent performance. As per usual, going to start it down at the bottom of the league and work our way up. And we talked about this team a little bit in the recap episode, mainly through the lens of how dominant the Washington Commanders were. But let's talk about the Cleveland Browns falling 3 spots down to number 29. I wanted to highlight Cleveland mainly because, look, if you're watching, look at our graphic. The teams that are typically down in the bottom 4 or 5 of the NFL, talking about teams that are either really talent poor or don't have a quarterback. Your New Englands of the world. Miami's obviously dealing with losing Tua Tagovailoa. Carolina, even Vegas and Tennessee are dealing with questionable, iffy quarterback situations. Cleveland has talent, and they got a $230 million quarterback, and it still hasn't stopped them from looking atrocious in the vast majority of their appearances this season. It's an anomaly. I think it's worth highlighting. I think eventually this is going to come to a head. If the Browns don't want to bench Deshaun Watson, that's their prerogative. And maybe there's still time for him to pull out of this, but there's too much talent on that roster and too much money invested in that quarterback for Cleveland to be as far down this ranking as they are. Something to monitor as Kevin Stefanski and the Browns try to navigate a very unenviable situation in Cleveland. Jumping up to number 24, up 4 spots. Shout out to the New York Giants. I'm not ready to say that the Giants are a good team this season, but I did basically leave them for dead 2 or 3 weeks ago. And this looks like a competent NFL team. They went up to Seattle. I thought Daniel Jones was phenomenal, just poised, made the plays that he needed to. Fantastic day, 100+ passer rating from him. And that Giants pass rush is going to give you a chance to win games, especially against subpar offensive lines like the one in Seattle. Not ready to declare too much, but the Giants looking like a better team than I was giving them credit for just a few short weeks ago. Up at number 16, taking a nice little leap. Chicago Bears, look, beating Carolina badly is something you should do if you have the Bears roster. I'm still going to give you a little bit of credit for doing it based on what we've seen from the Bears. Particularly, we talked about Caleb having a true, if you want to call it a breakout game, or just an all-around good game. Even if it's just Carolina, it matters that he was able to do it. The defense is going to keep him in the vast majority of games that they play. If Caleb can even approach that level of play on a regular basis, I think this is a perfect spot for the Bears, hovering in that playoff range. Maybe not quite there just yet, but hovering. Can they build on it? We will see. Up at number 11, falling 4 spots. I never dreamed that I would drop San Francisco out of the top 10, really. I mean, they've lost other games this year, obviously, and it didn't move me a whole lot. And I'm still not writing them off. Like, they'll get guys back from injury. They've got too much talent for me to be worried in the long term, but that's just a game you shouldn't lose if you're anyone. Like, having a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, we know the stats. We know how good Kyle Shanahan teams are in that situation. And to lose the lead to a team that you have so much more talent in than in Arizona, it was a loss unlike most that we see from San Francisco. Like, typically when San Francisco loses, somebody's either hurt or just there's a comedy of errors. I don't think that was the case. I mean, even with some of the end of game turnovers, the Niners had plenty of chances to put this game away. Up 13 points at the half against a somewhat one-dimensional Cardinals team. It just rubbed me the wrong way. I feel bad dropping San Francisco out of the top 10 because I do think they're one of the best 10 teams in the league, but can't reward that performance, particularly down the stretch. We'll finish it off all the way up at number 2. Going to London and surviving the Jets honestly might have been the Vikings' least impressive performance on paper, but it meant a lot to me. Like, international travel, 5th game in a row, 5th win in a row. Eventually something's got to give in the NFL, right? And you didn't get the great performance from Sam Darnold where you were able to just annihilate the Jets from the get, like this, they struggled. The Vikings struggled more than we've seen in their other games, and they still managed to hold on and pull out a win. I thought it was gritty. I thought it was impressive. They get the bye week. I am rewarding the Vikings. I think at 5-0 and the myriad of different ways they've managed to win games this year, I got them at number 2. Only the reigning champion Chiefs, I think, have definitively put together a better body of work than Minnesota. I didn't always feel that way, but with each passing week, what can you say? All right, that does it for the power rankings for another week. We will be back later in the week because it'll be time for week 6 preview before you even know it. We'll be back in your feed on Thursday talking about all the big matchups. Right off the top of my head, like we got Commanders, Ravens this week. We got Cowboys, Lions. Saints are playing the Buccaneers. A lot of fun stuff to get to in week 6, and we'll be here to preview all of it with you. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're not, go find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your pods. We're on the socials there. Come find us on X or Instagram or what have you at NFL on Fox Pod. We appreciate the support so much, and I will talk to y'all real soon. Thanks.